It was a bright Monday morning in the city courthouse. The air inside was thick with silence and tension. Everyone was waiting for Judge Marcus Brown to enter the courtroom. He was known for being calm, fair, and deeply respected. But today, something felt different. Officer Rebecca Stone stood near the witness stand. Arms crossed, eyes full of pride. She was a tall white woman with sharp blue eyes and a look that told everyone she was in control. She had worked in the police department for 10 years. She believed no one could question her authority, not even a judge. When Judge Marcus walked in, the room stood up. He was a black man in his early 50s, with a calm but powerful presence. His deep voice filled the room as he said, "You may be seated." Rebecca didn't stand properly. She gave a small smirk and sat down before others. The small disrespect didn't go unnoticed, but Judge Marcus kept his calm. He looked at her file, then back at her. "Officer Stone," he began, "you're here regarding the case of Mr. Harris, correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said, her tone flat, almost bored. "But I don't think we need to waste much time. The man's guilty." There was a small gasp in the courtroom. Everyone knew you didn't speak to Judge Marcus that way, but Rebecca didn't care. She believed she was smarter, stronger, and above rules. Judge Marcus raised an eyebrow. "We don't decide guilt based on opinion, officer. We decide based on facts and evidence." She shrugged. "With all due respect, sir, I know people like him. They always say they're innocent." The room went silent. Everyone understood what she meant. People like him. Judge Marcus paused for a long second. His eyes turned sharp, but his voice stayed calm. "People like him?" He repeated. Rebecca realized what she had said, but didn't back down. "Yes, sir. The type who always blamed the system instead of taking responsibility." Judge Marcus leaned forward. "Officer Stone, are you suggesting that guilt can be decided by type?" She crossed her arms again. "Sometimes experience tells you more than evidence." The judge looked at her steadily. "Experience is valuable, officer, but arrogance can blind even the most experienced." Her jaw tightened. The word arrogance stung, but she forced a smile. "With all due respect, Your Honor, I know my job." Judge Marcus gave a small nod. "Then I hope you do it well, because this court believes in truth, not ego." The tension in the room was heavy. The audience whispered quietly. Some shook their heads. Others watched in silence, knowing this moment was more than a simple disagreement. Then came the turning point. A young lawyer entered with a new piece of evidence, a video recording from the scene that no one had seen yet. Judge Marcus asked to play it. Rebecca rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed. As the video started, the courtroom lights dimmed. The screen showed Officer Stone at the arrest scene. Her tone was harsh, her words filled with anger. The man she arrested, Mr. Harris, looked scared and confused. The audience could hear her shouting, "You think people like you can break the law and walk free?" The courtroom gasped again. Rebecca's face turned pale. Judge Marcus didn't say a word. He simply paused the video and looked at her. His silence said everything. "Officer Stone," he finally spoke, "I think we will continue this tomorrow. Please reflect on your words and your actions." She tried to speak, but no words came out. Her confidence cracked. For the first time, she felt small inside that big courtroom. As she left, whispers followed her. Some pitied her. Others felt justice had already started to speak, not through anger, but through truth. Outside, the cold wind hit her face. For the first time in years, Officer Rebecca Stone felt something she didn't expect, fear. But little did she know, this was only the beginning. Rebecca Stone sat in her car outside the courthouse, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The words of Judge Marcus echoed in her head. Reflect on your words and your actions. She had never been spoken to like that before. To her, judges were slow, soft, and too forgiving. She believed the police kept the world safe, not people in robes behind desks. But something about the way Judge Marcus looked at her made her uneasy. As she stared out of the windshield, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her captain. "Come to my office. Now." Rebecca drove back to the station, her heart pounding. When she entered the captain's office, he was waiting with a cold expression. "Rebecca," he said firmly, "what happened in that courtroom today?" She crossed her arms. "Nothing serious. The judge just wanted to make a show. He doesn't understand how things work in the real world." The captain sighed. "You disrespected a judge in open court? And not just any judge, Marcus Brown. Do you know who he is?" Rebecca frowned. "A man who thinks he can embarrass me, apparently." The captain shook his head. "He's one of the most respected judges in this state. His word carries weight. If he reports your behavior, it could hurt your career." Rebecca laughed nervously. "He won't. He's just trying to look powerful." The captain leaned forward. "You're wrong. He's not like others. He doesn't shout, he doesn't threaten. But when he acts, the whole system listens." That night, Rebecca couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the judge's calm face. His silence scared her more than his words. The next morning, the courtroom was full again. Cameras flashed outside. The case had caught media attention. Officers' words sparked court controversy. Rebecca walked in, her confidence slightly cracked but not gone. Judge Marcus entered with the same quiet strength. Everyone stood. This time, Rebecca stood too, though her pride fought against it. The trial began again. Judge Marcus looked through the evidence and then said, "Before we continue, I have a few questions for Officer Stone." She nodded, her throat dry. "Officer," he said, "in your report, you claimed Mr. Harris resisted arrest. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." And yet, the judge said slowly, in the video, he was standing still with his hands raised. "Why did you write something different?" Rebecca's lips trembled. "Because I thought he was going to run, so you judged his intent before he acted." She tried to speak, but her words fell apart. The courtroom waited in silence. Judge Marcus continued, "Do you believe every man who looks like Mr. Harris is dangerous?" Rebecca's face turned red. "No, Your Honor, I don't." "Then why?" he asked softly. "Did your tone say otherwise?" Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. "I was under pressure. It was a stressful situation." The judge nodded. "Stress reveals who we really are, officer." His words cut deeper than anger ever could. Rebecca looked down. The courtroom was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Then Judge Marcus turned to the defense lawyer. "Mr. Harris has been found not guilty. The evidence clearly shows he was mistreated." The gavel struck once, sharp and final. Rebecca felt the sound echo inside her chest. Her career, her pride, belief in her own superiority, all began to crumble. As people left the courtroom, Judge Marcus remained seated for a moment, watching her. Then he said quietly, "Officer Stone, stay for a moment." Her heart froze. The doors closed and the room was empty except for them. "You think I embarrassed you?" he said gently. "But I only showed you the truth you've been hiding from." Rebecca's voice cracked. "You don't know me." "I know what arrogance does," he replied. "It turns good people blind. You can still change, but only if you're brave enough to see yourself honestly." For the first time, she didn't argue. She just stood there, silent as she walked out. The world outside felt louder, harsher, and suddenly, she wasn't sure who she was anymore. But the story was far from over. Something was coming that would change her life forever. The sun was setting behind the tall buildings as Officer Rebecca Stone drove home. The orange light spilled across her windshield, but she barely noticed it. Her mind was heavy, her thoughts loud. Every word Judge Marcus said kept replaying in her head like a broken record. Arrogance can blind even the most experienced. When she reached home, the house felt colder than usual. She dropped her badge on the table and stared at it. For years, that small piece of metal had made her feel powerful. Now, it felt heavy, like a reminder of something she didn't want to face. She turned on the TV. The news was covering her case again. "Public divided over courtroom incident," the reporter said. "Some call it justice, others call it humiliation." Her face flashed on the screen. The clip of her shouting at Mr. Harris played again and again. Rebecca grabbed the remote and switched off the TV. The silence that followed was almost painful. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "Rebecca, honey, what's going on?" "I saw the news." Rebecca sighed. It's nothing, Mom. Just media noise. Her mother's voice softened. I know you, sweetheart. You've always been strong. But sometimes strength means admitting when we're wrong. Rebecca's throat tightened. I didn't do anything wrong, she whispered. But even she didn't sound sure. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the face of Mr. Harris, the man she arrested. His eyes were filled with fear and confusion. For the first time, she wondered what he must have felt. Morning came too early. Rebecca decided to visit the police station. When she walked in, the whispers began. Some officers looked at her with pity, others with quiet judgment. Her partner, Officer Miller, approached her. Hey, you okay? She forced a smile. Yeah, I'm fine. You sure? He asked. The department's talking. Internal Affairs might open an investigation. Her heart skipped a beat. What? For what? For excessive force and false reporting, he said quietly. They're reviewing the video. Rebecca felt the ground shift under her feet. They can't do that, she said. Miller looked at her sadly. They can, and they will. Hours later, Rebecca sat in the captain's office again. This time, he didn't look angry, just disappointed. Rebecca, he said, I'm putting you on temporary suspension until the review is complete. She froze. You're suspending me? Yes, he said firmly. It's procedure. You need to step back and think about what happened. Rebecca wanted to shout, to fight back, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she walked out silently. Outside the station, she saw reporters waiting. Cameras flashed, microphones pushed toward her. Officer Stone, do you regret your behavior? One asked. Rebecca didn't answer. She just kept walking. Later that evening, she found herself standing outside the courthouse again. She didn't plan to go there, but somehow her car drove itself. She stood on the courthouse steps, staring at the big doors. Inside, Judge Marcus was finishing another case. When he saw her standing in the hallway, he paused. Officer Stone, he said, surprised. You're not here for another hearing, are you? She shook her head. No, Your Honor, I needed to see the place again. He studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Sometimes we come back to the place where the truth first hurt us, because deep down, we want to heal. I thought I was doing my job. Maybe you were, he said gently. But sometimes doing the job means facing the part of ourselves we ignore. His words stayed with her long after he left. As the courthouse lights dimmed, Rebecca stood alone in the hall. The silence was heavy, but for the first time. She didn't run from it. She looked at her reflection in the glass door. Tired eyes, trembling hands. A proud face now softened by regret. The mirror didn't lie. For the first time in her life. Officer Rebecca Stone saw not an officer. Not a symbol of power, but a human being. Flawed and afraid, and somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "This is only the beginning of your real test." Days turned into weeks. And Officer Rebecca Stone's suspension felt like a slow punishment that never ended. Every morning she woke up early out of habit, put on her uniform shirt, then remembered she couldn't wear it anymore. The badge still sat on her kitchen table, shining but silent. She tried to distract herself with coffee and chores, but guilt followed her like a shadow. Her neighbors avoided eye contact. The local paper ran a story titled, "Officer Under Review for Racial Bias." Each time she passed a store window, she saw her reflection beside that headline. One afternoon, she received an unexpected letter. It was from Judge Marcus Brown. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The letter was short but powerful. "Officer Stone, I believe in accountability, but I also believe in redemption. If you wish to understand justice, visit the community you once served. Sometimes truth is not found in reports or ranks, but in people." Judge Marcus Brown Rebecca read the letter 3 times. She didn't know whether to feel grateful or insulted, but something inside her, maybe guilt, maybe curiosity, made her follow his advice. The next day, she drove to the Eastwood district. The same area where she had arrested Mr. Harris? It was a poor neighborhood, full of small houses and broken sidewalks. Children played near the corner stores, laughing loudly. Their joy made her heart ache. She parked her car near a small community center. The sign read, "Justice Outreach Program helping ex-convicts start fresh." Inside, volunteers were setting up tables with paperwork and food boxes. To her surprise, she saw Mr. Harris there, smiling and helping others. He looked up and froze when he saw her. The room went silent. Rebecca hesitated. "Mr. Harris," she said softly. "Didn't expect to see you here?" He wiped his hands on his shirt, then crossed his arms. "Didn't expect to see you here either, officer." "I'm not on duty," she said quickly. "I came because... I wanted to understand." He gave a bitter laugh. "Understand what it feels like to be treated like a criminal for existing?" His words hit her harder than she expected. She took a deep breath. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "I didn't listen. I judged you." The room stayed quiet. Then Mr. Harris spoke again, softer this time. "People make mistakes, officer, but not everyone gets the chance to fix them." He walked toward her and handed her a box of food. "If you really want to understand, help us distribute these." Rebecca hesitated for a second, then took the box. For the next few hours, she worked alongside the people she once feared. She listened to their stories of broken homes, unfair arrests, and dreams still alive despite pain. Each story chipped away at her pride and built something new inside her empathy. When the day ended, Mr. Harris walked her to her car. "You know," he said, "Judge Marcus comes here sometimes. Not to judge, just to talk. He helps people rebuild their lives. You should join him one day." Rebecca smiled faintly. "Maybe I will." That night, as she sat in her car, she finally cried, not out of anger, but out of release. For the first time in years, she felt human again. The next morning, she visited the courthouse. Judge Marcus was surprised to see her but nodded politely. "I received your letter," she said. "And I went to Eastwood." His eyes softened. "And what did you find there?" She smiled weakly. "People. Real people. And a version of myself I had forgotten." Judge Marcus leaned back. "Then maybe justice has already begun inside you." Rebecca looked at him, truly looked this time. "Can I do more?" "Not as an officer, as a person," he nodded. "That's up to you. Redemption doesn't erase the past. It rebuilds what's broken." As she left his office, Rebecca felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, peace. But as she walked down the courthouse steps, a familiar voice stopped her. It was her captain. "Rebecca," he said urgently, "there's been an incident, and they're asking for you." Her heart skipped a beat. "As a suspect, or as a cop?" she asked nervously. The captain looked at her with strange eyes. "Neither," he said. "As a witness." "And it's about Judge Marcus." Rebecca froze. The peace she felt vanished instantly. Something terrible had happened, and this time, it was personal. Rebecca's heart pounded as she followed her captain through the crowded courthouse hallway. Red and blue lights flashed outside. Officers were rushing in every direction. The air was heavy with panic. "What happened?" she asked, her voice trembling. The captain's face was pale. "Judge Marcus was attacked in the parking lot. Someone tried to shoot him after court hours. He's in the hospital now." Rebecca stopped walking. For a moment, everything around her went silent. Is he alive?" The captain nodded. "Barely. He took a bullet to the shoulder. The shooter escaped." Rebecca felt her knees weakened. The man who had taught her the meaning of truth and humility was now fighting for his life, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just random violence. She took a deep breath. "I want to help with the investigation." The captain hesitated. "You're suspended stone." "I don't care," she said fiercely. "You know I can help." He looked at her for a long second, then finally nodded. "Fine, but off the record." Hours later, Rebecca stood at the crime scene. Police tapes surrounded the area. She noticed a few shell casings near a car and a security camera above the parking gate. "Has anyone checked the footage?" she asked. "Systems down," an officer said. "Somebody erased the data before we got here." That didn't sit right with her. "Who has access to the surveillance?" "Only courthouse security," the officer replied. Rebecca frowned. Something was wrong. Too clean, too fast. The next morning, she went to the hospital to see Judge Marcus. He was lying in bed, pale but awake. When he saw her, a weak smile crossed his face. "Officer Stone," he said softly, "I thought you'd given up on uniforms." "I came as a person," she said, sitting beside him. "Who did this?" He sighed. "Someone who didn't want me to open a case. I was reviewing evidence that could expose corruption inside the police department." Rebecca's eyes widened. "Inside the department?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, and I believe the person behind it knows you." Her heart raced. "Knows me?" "Your old partner, Officer Miller," he whispered. "He's been under investigation for falsifying reports and covering illegal arrests." Rebecca's stomach twisted. "That can't be true." "Miller's. He's been my friend for years." Judge Marcus looked at her with calm eyes. "Sometimes the hardest truth is the one that stands beside us." Later that day, Rebecca went to Miller's apartment. He opened the door, surprised to see her. "Rebecca," he said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "You heard about the judge?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. Did you know anything about it?" He laughed. "You think I had something to do with that?" She looked straight at him. "Did you?" The smile faded. His jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be here." Rebecca noticed a duffel bag on the table, half-zipped, filled with cash and documents. Her pulse quickened. "What's that?" "None of your business," he snapped. She stepped closer. "Miller, don't do this. Whatever it is, stop now." But he was already pulling out his gun. "You don't understand, Rebecca? People higher than us run this. The judge wanted to expose them. I warned him to back off." Blood ran cold. "So you shot him?" "I didn't have a choice," he shouted. "They told me to silence him, or they'd come after me." Rebecca raised her hand slowly. "We can fix this. Turn yourself in. Tell the truth." He shook his head. "Truth doesn't save anyone, Rebecca. It only destroys." Suddenly, sirens wailed outside. Miller looked toward the window, panicking. "They followed you?" Rebecca didn't move. "It's over." Miller turned his gun toward her, but before he could fire, officers stormed in. A single shot rang out, and Miller fell to the ground. Rebecca stood frozen, her heart shattered. Later that night, she sat alone in her car, staring at her trembling hands. Everything she believed in, loyalty, justice, friendship, had broken apart. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "The system cleans itself, but not completely. Be careful who you trust." Rebecca looked out at the dark city streets. The war wasn't over. It had just begun, and deep down, she knew her next choice would decide whether she saved her soul or lost it forever. The city felt colder the next morning. Clouds hung low, and the sound of distant sirens echoed through the streets. Rebecca Stone hadn't slept. The image of Miller lying on the floor haunted her. She had lost a friend, but worse, she had seen the dark truth hiding behind the badge she once wore with pride. When she arrived at the courthouse, news crews were already there. The story had exploded across the city. Police officer killed after attempted cover-up.
Ow!
Reporters shouted questions, but Rebecca walked straight inside. She wasn't there for the cameras. She was there for justice. Judge Marcus had been released from the hospital and was sitting in his chambers, his arm in a sling. When Rebecca entered, he gave her a tired smile. "You found the truth," he said softly. She nodded. "And I wish I hadn't." He studied her for a moment. "Truth isn't meant to be easy. It's meant to be real." Rebecca sat down. Miller wasn't acting alone. "There's someone higher, someone who gave the order. He said they wanted the case buried." Judge Marcus's expression grew serious. "Do you have proof?" She reached into her jacket and placed a small flash drive on his desk. Miller's bag had a backup drive. It contains names, bank transfers, and police reports all linked to one person. Who? The judge asked quietly. Rebecca hesitated. Captain Ross. The silence in the room grew heavy. Marcus leaned back, stunned. Your captain? Yes, she said, her voice shaking. He's been using officers to make illegal arrests and cover up evidence. Miller tried to expose him, but got trapped. When you reopened the Harris case, Ross panicked. Judge Marcus nodded slowly, understanding the danger. If this is true, we can't handle it quietly. It must go through the court. Rebecca's eyes filled with determination. Then let's do it. I'll testify. That afternoon, a special hearing was arranged. The courthouse was filled again. Reporters, officers, and citizens waiting for answers. For once, Rebecca wasn't on the defense. She was the one seeking justice. Judge Marcus entered, his arm still bandaged, but his voice strong. This emergency hearing concerns corruption inside the city police department, he began. Officer Rebecca Stone has submitted critical evidence. Rebecca stood, her hands steady for the first time in weeks. She told everything from Miller's confession to the hidden files and Ross's threats. The courtroom was silent as she spoke, every word cutting through the air like a blade. When she finished, Judge Marcus turned to the captain, who sat at the back, his face pale and angry. Captain Ross, the judge said, do you have a response? Ross stood up slowly. This is a lie. She's trying to save herself. But before he could continue, the court officer handed the judge a report. Marcus read it carefully, then looked up. This file confirms bank transfers and falsified records all under your name, Captain. Gasps filled the room. Ross's face turned red. You can't prove anything, he shouted. Judge Marcus struck the gavel. Enough. You have betrayed your oath and abused your power. You will be taken into custody immediately. Two officers moved forward and handcuffed him. For a moment, Rebecca watched the man who once led her, now broken and defeated. Judge Marcus looked at her. Officer Stone, he said, you stood for truth, even when it cost you everything. That is what justice truly means. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't do it for forgiveness, she whispered. I did it because I finally understood what the badge should stand for. The courtroom rose in applause, not loud, but full of respect. As she stepped outside, the cold wind hit her face again. But this time, it didn't sting. It felt like a new beginning. Reporters surrounded her, asking if she planned to return to the force. She smiled faintly. No, she said. I'm starting something new, a program to rebuild trust between police and the people. Later, she visited the community center in Eastwood. The children ran up to her, smiling. Mr. Harris waved from across the room, and in that small, warm place filled with laughter, Rebecca finally felt peace. Somewhere deep inside, she heard Judge Marcus's voice, calm, steady, and true. Justice is not about power. It's about change. This time she believed it.